By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to create bold, retro-style comic art using nothing but the free brushes that you can download right now. Yeah, free. $0. No excuses, guys. And if you don't have Procreate, these brushes are available for Photoshop, Affinity, and Clip Studio Paints as well. Today, I'll take you from zero ideas to a finished retro comic illustration, step by step. But before we dive into the drawing process, let's break down the brush pack, what's in it, where to get it, and why it's so dang good. You don't need fancy tools to make great art. That's not a cliche, it's true. Am I using an overpriced iPad? Yeah. Would I still draw with a crayon on a padded cell wall if I had to? Also yeah. RetroSupply's bundle gives you 8 essential brushes for retro comics, posters, and illustrations, plus a gritty paper texture straight out of a dusty 60s print shop. And the best part? It's absolutely free. Head to RetroSupply.co and sign up for their email list. That's it. A small price to pay for eternal artistic power. Here's what you get in the pack. First, you get a dope paper texture to add to your art. This will add vintage retro charm to your piece instantly. Next, you get the standard pencil number 1. This is your ride or die sketch brush. It's responsive, textured, and gives you enough grit without being messy. And here's a pro tip. Don't sketch in pure black. It's too harsh. Try a soft gray or go full comic nerd like me and use a desaturated blue. It's got style, and it helps separate your sketch from your inks like a champ. The ramen brush is your new favorite inker. It's smooth, a little gritty, and has just enough tooth to make it feel hand done, like your lines were printed by a dying Xerox machine. The jumbo marker is perfect for dumping in big blocks of color. It's fast, bold, and gets the job done without whining. The dry brush will add some drama to your inks. This one's got that broken in, dragged across a gravel road texture that makes your inks pop with realism. The Carbon tab, a definite MVP. It's amazing for soft shadows and painterly shadings without going full digital paint mode. Straight up Halftones. This brush is your shortcut for instant vintage. Ink spray can be used to add imperfections, noise, and that my printer's almost out of ink look. It's great for texture, subtle grit, and grunge. The Ink Destroyer brush rips your work up, in a good way. Use it to strip pigment and make your illustration feel aged, worn, and battle-tested. Alright, brush talk over, guys. Let's jump into my full process from chaos to completion. Step 1. Brainstorm. Blank canvas paralysis is real. Sometimes I like to start with a keyword. Today, mine was steel. And then I let my big old smooth brain play some word association. I went from steel to money to evil to devil to fire. You get it. And if you're still stuck, try scrolling Instagram or Pinterest or dig into some Inktober prompts. RetroSupply's Frightfall is also great if spooky's your jam. The goal is to spark something. Inspiration doesn't always knock. Sometimes you gotta go kick the door down. Step 2. Reference. Let's kill a myth real quick. Real artists use reference. No, you're not cheating, you're researching. That pose, that palette, that whole vibe, reference it. I hoard images from Pinterest, Google, Instagram, old comics, whatever works. And take your own pics if you need them. Strike a pose and be your own muse. Drop all your references into one image and load it into Procreate's reference window. Boom. Instant mood board. Step 3. Paper texture and canvas settings. It's time to kill that blank white void. That included paper texture? Use it. You can find it in your files and then tap it to open it in Procreate. Sketch below the texture layers. It dials down the blinding white and adds a warm, retro, tactile feel. Sketching on it just feels better. Now's also a good time to resize your canvas if you need to. I usually use a few go-to Instagram, YouTube sizes, which I'll throw on the screen now. Screenshot those bad boys. To resize your canvas, first go to Actions and then Canvas. And then crop and resize. Input your dimensions and then resize your texture layers if needed. If you have a DPI over 300 and your dimensions are above 2000 pixels, you should be golden. Step 4. Thumbnails. Ugly sketches save lives. Thumbnails are tiny, messy rough drafts that'll help you dump those swirling ideas from your little pink brain right onto the screen. Use the standard pencil 1 here. It's great for loose sketching. I usually like to start by filling my canvas with a base color and then scaling it down. I lower the opacity and then trace a box around it on a new layer. And then I delete the colored one. Now I have a smaller version of my canvas with the same dimensions. This is perfect for thumbnails. Try some different compositions. Maybe a close crop, maybe pulled back. Doesn't matter if they suck, that's the point. Get the junk out early. Step 5, rough sketch. This might be the most important step. Refine your thumbnail, but not too much. Think about it like a 20% upgrade. Clearer, but still loose. This is where I lock in proportions, anatomy, and basic structure. I also like to experiment a bit. At one point, I almost gave this devil some big mutton chops and a smiley face pin. I didn't keep it, but hey, it's fun to explore. Once that feels solid, you can move on. Step 6, clean sketch. Turn your sketch into less of a mess. Create a new layer above your rough and drop your rough's opacity low enough to guide you, but not distract you. Now start to refine. Sharpen angles, smooth curves, and add key details. This is also where I like to figure out my light source so I can start planning shadows and highlights. But still, it's just a sketch. It doesn't need to be perfect. The final polish comes next. But hey guys, let me take a quick pause to ask, are you enjoying this tutorial? If you are, maybe hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. We've got a lot more videos coming up to help you master comic style illustrations. Alright, enough yapping, back to the video. Step 7, inks. Inking. It's therapeutic for some, but nightmare fuel for others. If you need a deep dive, go check out our inking video. But here's the speed run. First, grab the right brush. The Ramen ink pen from the bundle is a favorite. It's smooth, reliable, and just enough grit for some charm. Now, tweak your stabilization for cleaner lines, but not too much or things can feel robotic. Use line weight variation to add depth, but most importantly, don't trace your sketch. Use it as a guide. Tracing kills the energy. Once your inks are clean and full of life, it's time to move on to the fun stuff. Step 8, halftones. Nothing screams retro like halftones. Use the halftone brush to add some visual grit and texture. I used it on the devil's suit, his cigar, and even his ear for some contrast. And here's a pro tip. Use the selection tool to block out areas, and then use a scaled up version of the halftone brush for clean, easy fills. Step 9, coloring, shading, and highlights. Let's inject some life into this thing. Start with a color palette. I picked a nice saturated red and a lighter blue. I used the carbon tab for my fills and a jumbo marker for the background. Then using a layer mask, I went over the background with the halftone brush for some texture. Here's 2 easy fill methods. The classic way. Make a new layer under your inks and fill it manually. This is slower, but the brush texture really pops and the results feel a lot more organic. And then the lazy way. Set your line art to reference and then make a new layer underneath. Start dragging and dropping colors. This is fast and good for testing color palettes. Since this is a simple vintage comic panel, I'm keeping the shadows and highlights minimal on purpose. But for your benefit, I'll show you a quick and fast way to add both. Shading. Create a clipping mask above your color layer. Set it to multiply. Now pick a cool blue or purple color brush and add shadows under the neck, the nose, folds, wherever's needed. You can adjust the opacity of this layer till it looks right. And if you feel a little lost, maybe check out our shading and highlights video. It'll definitely help. For highlights, create a new clipping mask and set it to screen or overlay. Use a pale yellowish white color and brush the edges for a subtle rim light. This is simple, quick, and effective. Vintage comics didn't overthink lighting. You shouldn't have to either. Step 10. Print defects and misalignment. Perfect art is boring. Mess it up on purpose. Use the ink spray and ink destroyer brushes with layer masks for some gritty, worn texture. And if you want that retro comic misalignment, just nudge your color layers a few pixels off your inks. Boom. Instant offset print vibes. Alright guys, enough talk. Let's see this beast come together. Time to roll the time lapse. And there you have it, from blank canvas to full-blown retro comic chaos using just one free brush pack that you can get right now. Pretty cool, right? So guys, go download the Steal This brush pack from RetroSupply, mess around, and make something cool. And if you dug this video, drop a like, hit subscribe, and ring that little bell so the algorithm knows we exist. And if you have questions or ideas for new videos, drop them in the comments. We read every single one, even the weird ones. Alright guys, catch you in the next video. Happy creating.